All right, let's get into our analysis of the first 4 days of the Battle of Guadalajara. We're going to focus specifically on the Italian offensive from March 8th through the 11th, 1937. This will be a tactical deep dive into how that initial assault unfolded and, just as importantly, why it eventually stalled out.
Now, all the analysis and mapping you're about to see comes directly from the Batallas Guerra Civil project. That's the work of Colonel F.J. Victor Rodrigo of the Spanish Army. So rest assured, we are working with some incredibly detailed and expert source material here. Okay, so our analysis begins on the 8th of March. This is day 1, the initial breach of the Republican front by the Italian Corpo Truppe Volontari, otherwise known as the CTV.
At 0700 hours, the battle opens with a 30-minute artillery barrage from about 120 guns. Now, the weather was absolutely terrible, so bad it grounded all air support. But despite that, the 2nd Legionary Division pushed forward with 3 columns, and they achieved complete tactical surprise.
So what's really interesting here is you see these mixed results right out of the gate. The right column, under Pitau, is stopped cold. The center column, Vendelli's, fails in its mission to support him. It's only Francisci's left column that makes any significant headway, and here's the crucial takeaway. Yes, they achieved a breach, but they didn't meet their planned objectives. The tempo was dangerously slow. And that slowness, that would turn out to be a fatal mistake.
You see, that slow pace from the CTV gave the Republican command a critical window of opportunity. Even though they were caught completely by surprise, General Miaja reacted incredibly fast. He started stripping reserves from the Jarama front and rushing them to contain this breakthrough. That action bought them absolutely invaluable time.
And if you want to understand just how severe the situation was for the Republic, just look at this quote from their Chief of Staff, Vicente Rojo. In his own words, he confirms the front was broken and his troops were in a disordered retreat. It really highlights just how successful that initial surprise attack by the CTV actually was.
So, after breaking the line on day 1, the whole dynamic starts to shift. As we move into March 9th, the CTV now faces the challenge of exploiting their breach, while on the other side, the Republicans are in a desperate race to form a new defensive line. General Roada orders his 3rd Division to conduct a paso de linea, a passage of lines, to drive through that breach and head for Guadalajara. But what happens? Poor staff work and a single muddy road create an enormous traffic jam. The entire exploitation force gets stuck, completely unable to advance until 1600 hours. We're talking about a critical 8-hour delay. But amidst this command-level failure, you see some real tactical initiative on the ground. Colonel Francisci, seeing this massive delay, decides to take matters into his own hands. His column undertakes a brutal 20-kilometer night march in freezing weather, and he gets his men into position outside Brihuega by dawn on the 10th.
Meanwhile, the Republican response is starting to crystallize under Colonel Lacalle. He's organizing his arriving forces into 3 key groups: the XI International Brigade to block the main highway, another force to defend Brihuega, and a powerful reserve. The objective here is crystal clear: block the 2 main Italian axes of advance at all costs.
Okay, on March 10th, the battle escalates, and sharply. You've got Italian overconfidence leading to an ambitious and frankly risky new plan, just as elite Republican reinforcements are arriving on the field. General Roada, feeling pretty good after a 30-kilometer advance, unilaterally decides to widen the entire operation. He's now aiming for the Tabo River. This was an incredibly complex maneuver, one that even Franco had advised against, and it put immense strain on his inexperienced troops as the weather just continued to get worse. Then, in the forests near Brihuega, the CTV runs headlong into the newly arrived 12th International Brigade, and this is a pivotal moment. For the first time, you have Italian anti-fascist volunteers fighting Italian CTV soldiers. This confirms the nature of the attacking army and, you can imagine, hands the Republic an absolutely enormous propaganda victory. Now, along the main highway to Zaragoza, the Italian advance is completely stopped by the 11th International Brigade and their Soviet T-26 tanks. In fact, CTV casualties on this day alone were higher than the first 2 days combined. So here's the crucial point. While the main attacks are getting shut down, Colonel Marzo's Zoria Brigade on the far northern flank is, believe it or not, still advancing virtually unopposed. After the brutal fighting on the 10th, the offensive has lost all of its momentum. So March 11th is really defined by 2 things: a grinding stalemate on the ground and a fundamental reorganization of the Republican command structure.
The CTV does manage to take the town of Trijueque, but only after savage, close-quarters combat. The overall advance, though, is paralyzed. The battle just degenerates into a series of attritional skirmishes in the forests, and now they're fighting in a blinding snowstorm.
And this right here shows a fundamental shift in the CTV's entire mindset. The orders for the next day? They abandon any thought of a broad advance. The new priority is purely defensive, closing the dangerous enemy-held gap between their positions at Trijueque and Brihuega. The offensive impulse is completely gone.
And it's at this exact moment of CTV hesitation that the Republicans make their decisive move. On the afternoon of the 11th, the Central Army issues an order creating an entirely new formation to take control of the battle, the IV Army Corps.
This new corps is assigned a solid defensive line that runs all the way from the Henares River to Cifuentes. And its mission is explicit: hold this line at all costs and stabilize the front, period.
And make no mistake, this new IV Corps, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Enrique Jurado, is a powerful formation. It integrates 3 divisions, the 11th, 12th, and 14th, which include those veteran international brigades, along with significant armored and artillery support.
So, this all brings us to the critical situation on the night of March 11th. And this, really, represents the true turning point of the entire battle.
But even with the Republican reorganization, there's still immense uncertainty. General Miaja himself reports what he calls a highly confusing situation to his superiors. It's the fog of war. Neither side really has a clear picture of the other's strength or their intentions.
But in all of this confusion, a truly momentous decision is made. That night, at a command meeting in Tarija, the new IV Corps Command, along with their Soviet advisors, they reject a passive defense. They decide to seize the initiative and launch a full-scale counteroffensive.
And so, we'll end this phase of the battle with a question for you. As the night of March 11th closes, the CTV offensive is completely stalled in the snow, and it's riddled with confusion. On the other side, a newly formed and very powerful Republican IV Corps is preparing to strike back. So, who now holds the operational initiative?
For a more comprehensive look at this battle and other campaigns, I highly recommend you check out the source project at batallasquarecivil.es. Thank you for joining us for this analysis.